Welcome to the Library of Dreams Part 1. Tonight we journey with Stephen Fry, the voice that has brought magic to millions into a sanctuary where stories live, breathe, and shimmer in golden light. Here floating books whisper tales of longing, joy, courage, and memory. Each story will guide you deeper into calm peace and wonder, carrying you softly toward a night of restorative sleep. Close your eyes. Let your mind wander, let the Library of Dreams embrace you, and let Stephen Fry's voice lead you through a world where imagination is gentle, emotions are tender, and every heartbeat of a story is a step toward serenity. Evenings had always held a peculiar sort of magic for Stephen Fry, not the loud, glittering magic of performances, red carpets, or flashing cameras, but the quiet kind, the kind that arrives softly like a cat settling itself onto a warm lap. It was this gentle hour that Stephen cherished most, and on this particular evening the world outside his window seemed to carry an even softer glow, as though the sky itself were exhaling after a long day. He closed the door behind him with the faintest click, the familiar weight of his home settling around him like an old friend, even after decades of public life, hosting shows, performing on stage, delivering monologues that made the nation laugh and cry. Stephen always found these solitary hours to be the sweetest. It wasn't loneliness, it was stillness, something he rarely experienced in the brilliant, bustling world he moved through. He loosened the scarf around his neck, letting it unspool into his hands before hanging it carefully by the door. Every gesture he made felt slower than usual, as though even his body understood that this evening was to be savored, not hurried. His home greeted him not with silence, but with a sort of gentle presence, the faint hum of old wooden floors, and the comforting scent of books that had lived long, loyal lives on his shelves in the kitchen. A faint pool of lamplight fell across the dark marble counter. Stephen reached for his favorite teapot, a round, plump little thing the color of deep forest moss. It had chipped edges from years of use, but he adored it for that very reason. It held its history proudly, much like him. He filled it with water, listening to the low burble of the kettle as it began to heat. There was something soothing in the ritual, the soft clinking of ceramic, the fragrant scent of lavender and lemon balm from the tea tin, the gentle swirl of steam rising like a tiny spirit from the spout. Every detail of this moment seemed amplified, wrapped in peace. As the kettle clicked off, he poured the steaming water over the loose leaves and watched them bloom, unfurling like small flowers beneath the surface. The aroma drifted through the air, soft and comforting like a lullaby woven into vapor. Cradling the mug between both hands, he made his way into the sitting room. The living room was just as he liked it. Warm, lived in, softly lit. Tall bookshelves lined the walls, each filled with volumes gathered over decades, classics, forgotten gems, manuscripts gifted by friends, even endless rows of audiobooks he had narrated himself. It amused him sometimes, standing before those shelves and thinking, there I am on this one, and this one, and this one, as though he were visiting old pieces of himself scattered across spines and pages. But the true heart of the room was his armchair, upholstered in a gentle, dusty blue fabric that had molded itself perfectly to his shape over the years. It was the kind of chair one didn't simply sit in. One settled into it, like lowering oneself into a warm bath that knew exactly how to hold you. He eased into it now with a grateful sigh, the cushions embracing him with familiar softness. The tea warmed his palms, and for a long, comfortable moment Stephen simply breathed. The world outside his window was quiet. Evening birds called faintly from distant trees. A soft breeze brushed against the panes, carrying the earthy scent of the day, giving way to night lights from neighboring homes flickered like little stars scattered across the street. Everything felt peaceful. But underlying that peace was something unusual, a gentle tug like a thread, brushing against the edge of his thoughts. It wasn't intrusive, it wasn't worrisome, it was simply curious, as though the air itself was leaning toward him, wanting him to notice something. Stephen was no stranger to unusual feelings. His life had been filled with strange coincidences, moments of odd synchronicity, and the kind of whimsical occurrences that seemed to happen only to people who move between the worlds of literature, imagination, and public life. So he didn't dismiss the sensation. Instead, he let it unfold naturally, like the slow bloom of an idea. He took a sip of his tea, warm, floral, soothing. His mind drifted to the day. He had just completed a day of recording, one of many in his ongoing work as a narrator. Even after narrating all 7 Harry Potter books, after voicing countless documentaries, audiobooks, and tales beloved by millions worldwide, he never tired of the art of storytelling. There was something deeply intimate about using one's voice to guide another human being into a world of imagination. So intimate that sometimes while recording he felt as though he was speaking directly to a single listener curled up in bed somewhere waiting for sleep to carry them away. Today he had recorded a new story, gentle, reflective, full of soft imagery designed to calm and comfort. His voice had flowed smoothly, each word coated in warmth, and yet, when he left the studio, he couldn't shake the feeling that the day wasn't quite complete, as though something still awaited him now in the serenity of his home. That feeling grew stronger. His eyes drifted across the room, noting small details: his writing desk in the corner, a pair of glasses resting beside a half-finished crossword puzzle, a framed photograph from his younger days with friends long since scattered across the winds of time. Everything was familiar, everything was ordinary, and yet there it was again, a gentle pull, a whisper of curiosity brushing the edge of his awareness. Stephen leaned back in his chair, resting his head against the soft cushion. Perhaps he was simply tired. Perhaps the day's work, wonderful though it was, had left his mind slightly attuned to the extraordinary. But the feeling did not fade, it lingered, quiet but insistent, like the first notes of a melody one recognizes before remembering its name. He let his gaze wander once more, slowly, calmly, until it fell upon something he had not noticed earlier there, resting on the corner of his writing desk was an envelope, a single envelope, thick parchment blue wax seal catching the lamplight. He frowned softly. He did not remember placing it there. He did not remember receiving it at all. But it was unmistakably real, and unmistakably addressed to him, Stephen Arthur Fry. The air around him seemed to grow even more still, as though the world were holding its breath, waiting for him to approach. He set his tea gently on the side table, the porcelain barely making a sound tonight. It seemed the quiet evening he had expected would be something far more intriguing. And though he didn't yet know why, Stephen felt the first flutterings of wonder, the kind that only stories can awaken, begin blooming quietly inside him. The envelope sat on Stephen's writing desk with a presence that felt almost intentional, as though it had not merely been placed there, but arrived quietly, purposefully. And with a story already threaded into its fibers, Stephen studied it from across the room for a moment, his mind measuring the peculiarity of its appearance. He had not heard a knock at the door. There had been no rustling of mail through the slot. The household was still, the windows locked, the evening undisturbed except for the faint hum of wind outside. And yet, there it was, as real as the books lining his shelves, as real as the steam still curling from his abandoned teacup. Finally, with the curiosity of a scholar approaching an ancient artifact, he rose from his armchair. His footsteps were slow, cushioned by the thick Persian rug that muted even the smallest sound. The lamplight cast a warm halo across the desk, illuminating the envelope with an almost theatrical glow. As though the universe had set the stage just for him, he reached the desk and ran his fingers lightly over the parchment. It was thick, textured, almost velvety beneath his touch. This was no cheap stationery. It felt handmade, crafted with intention. The kind of paper one might find in an old English manor, passed from one generation of guardians to the next. The wax seal caught his eye. Next, a deep cobalt blue, rare, striking. Not the bright, cheerful blue of summer skies, but the profound blue of twilight, the kind of color that appears only in the last breaths of day. Pressed into the wax was a symbol he did not recognize at first, a quill crossed with a lantern, curious, unusual, and strangely lovely. He lifted the envelope closer to the light, and that's when he noticed something else. His name was handwritten in a script of extraordinary elegance. Stephen Arthur Fry. People rarely used his full name. Outside official formalities, friends called him Stephen. Fans often addressed him warmly as Mr. Fry or simply Stephen Fry in letters. But Stephen Arthur Fry was usually reserved for legal documents or the rare moment someone wished to sound particularly grand, yet here it was written with such grace that it felt like the name itself had been honored through ink. He tilted his head slightly, amused. Arthur, he murmured aloud, tasting the middle name. That felt like a vestige from a long ago chapter of his life I haven't heard that in a while. He broke into a quiet smile. This envelope, mysterious though it was, did not frighten him. If anything, it intrigued him deeply. The world often surprised him, but rarely in ways that felt quite so magical. With careful fingers, he slipped a thumb beneath the wax seal. It broke with the faintest crack, releasing a subtle, pleasant scent. Old paper tinged with something floral, perhaps jasmine or wild lavender. He unfolded the parchment inside and held it up. There was only one sentence centered neatly in the middle of the page. Your voice is needed in the library of dreams. Stephen blinked once, then twice. His eyebrows lifted slightly, though not in alarm, more in the quiet delight of someone encountering the kind of whimsy he adored. The library of dreams, he repeated softly. Good heavens, what on earth is that? It could have been a clever prank, of course. Some fans were brilliantly creative and occasionally sent letters written with curious little puzzles or coded riddles, but this felt different. There was no extravagance, no request for autographs, no playful challenge. Just a quiet, simple sentence. Your voice is needed, as though he had been summoned, not commanded, not urgently called, but invited. Stephen's first impulse was to chuckle, and he did. A warm, low sound that filled the room. Comfortably well, he said to himself. This is either the beginning of a particularly imaginative fan interaction, or he paused, searching for the right tone, or something quite delightfully peculiar. He ran a hand through his hair and looked around out of habit, expecting rather irrationally that someone might step from behind a curtain proclaiming the joke, but of course the room remained still, serene. His home was quiet, unchanged, as if it too were waiting for his next move. His eyes returned to the letter, the library of dreams. The phrase stirred something in him, a whisper of memory, though not a literal one. It felt like a symbol, something ancient, something he had always known without consciously knowing. He could almost imagine it. A library filled with the collective dreams of humankind. Shelves overflowing with stories born in the quiet hours when the world sleeps. He pressed the parchment lightly against his palm. The meaning was unclear. The intention, however, felt kinder. than anything he had encountered in a very long time. But just as he began to set the letter down, something shifted. A faint sound drifted across the room. Not loud, not dramatic, more a presence than a noise, like the quiet turning of a page. In an otherwise silent library, he froze, listening. The sound came again, soft, deliberate, not from the window, not from the street, from behind him. Stephen turned slowly, and there where the wall had been moments before stood a door, a wooden door. Tall, polished, glowing faintly around. The edges like light filtering through stained glass, its brass knob gleamed softly. Despite the lack of direct light, the grain of the oak seemed to shimmer. As though the wood itself were alive with quiet invitations, Stephen's breath caught. Not in fear, but in utter astonishment. While he whispered, "That's new," he approached the door cautiously, but not anxiously. His heart beat steadily, curiosity overwhelming any sense of disbelief. Something deep inside him, a part he rarely acknowledged, felt calm, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Far longer than he realized, he lifted a hand and placed his palm against the door, warm, unexpectedly warm, like sunlit wood that had been basking in daylight hours. After the sun had slipped away, the subtle whispers on the other side grew clearer, rustling pages, gentle murmurs, the soft hum of something ancient but benevolent. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the sound settle around him like a soft blanket. The air held no sense of danger, only welcome, only invitation. Whatever lay beyond this door, whatever the library of dreams truly was, Stephen felt a certainty, fragile but sincere, blooming quietly in his chest. He was meant to open it. He inhaled deeply, hand still resting on the brass knob, and with a small, steady motion, he turned it and stepped through. The moment Stephen crossed the threshold, he felt the world shift. Not abruptly, not with any shock or force, but in a gentle, gradual way, like stepping from warm sunlight into the cool embrace of a quiet cathedral. The door closed softly behind him with a sound no louder than a sigh. For a moment, Stephen simply stood still, letting his eyes adjust to the new world unfolding before him. He blinked once, twice, the way one does upon waking from the softest dream, unsure if the world in front of him is real or imagined. And then he saw a long corridor stretched into the distance, but not an ordinary corridor, not one built by human hands or architectural design. This hallway seemed to grow organically, as though it were sculpted from the essence of stories themselves. The walls shimmered faintly with moving patterns, soft ripples, like ink drifting across water. Every few seconds, these ripples formed shapes, a quill, a candle flame, a fluttering page, each dissolving back into gentle flowing light beneath his feet. The floor felt smooth and warm, not stone, not wood, but something akin to polished marble infused with a living glow. The air carried a subtle fragrance. Stephen could not immediately place the scent of old books kissed by moonlight, a hint of lavender, the sweetness of dreams remembered from childhood. It was beautiful, otherworldly, and impossibly peaceful. Stephen took a cautious step forward. There was no fear in him, only awe, only that same soft tug of curiosity that had drawn him toward the envelope on his desk. As he walked, he noticed that the corridor was not silent, not at all. A gentle murmur flowed around him, like 1,000 tiny whispers layered over one another. But the whispers were not words. They were not voices. They were stories. The page-turning sound he had heard from the sitting room now echoed more clearly. Flutters of paper, soft sighs, the faint hum of lines spoken long ago. It felt as though the very air breathed with narrative. With imagination, he paused and placed a hand on the wall. It was warm under his palm, pulsing faintly, like the heartbeat of a gentle creature asleep beneath the surface. And in that pulse, Stephen felt just for a moment an emotion that took Him by surprise, he felt welcomed as though the place itself recognized him. A storyteller, a keeper of words, a voice that had carried magic into millions of lives. He swallowed softly, the warmth spreading from his hand to his chest. Well, he murmured to himself in a near whisper, this is certainly the most extraordinary hallway I've ever been asked to enter. His voice, though quiet, echoed with a calm resonance. That surprised him. The corridor seemed to listen as he continued. Walking, a soft breeze drifted through the hall, though he could find no source for it. It carried a faint chimming sound, delicate and melodic, almost like wind brushing past crystal goblets. With each step, the lights on the walls deepened, swirling into richer blues, warm ambers, gentle golds. The air itself began to glow in small pockets. As if responding to his presence, Stephen wondered briefly what part of his rational mind should be saying about all this. Surely he should have been questioning reality. Surely he should have been doubting his senses, worrying about hallucinations or fatigue. But he didn't. He didn't feel confused. He didn't feel disoriented. Instead, he felt aligned, as though some deeper part of his heart, the part that had loved stories since childhood, the part that found comfort in words, recognized this place with an intimacy he could not explain. The corridor widened. At its end stood a door, not like the one he entered through, but grander, taller, carved with intricate designs that seemed to move fluidly under the soft glow. This door was a masterpiece of craftsmanship. Deep oak, rich and ancient, covered in swirling engravings that depicted countless open books. The pages seemed to flutter, even though they were carved in solid wood. Above the door, engraved in flowing letters, were three simple words: the Library of Dreams. Stephen's breath caught gently in his chest. The words on the mysterious note had been no metaphor, no symbolic flourish. It was real, or as real as anything. In this strange, beautiful place, without hesitation, he lifted a hand and pressed it against the carved wood. It was warm, the same warmth he'd felt on the shimmering corridor walls. The engravings beneath his fingers pulsed gently like pages breathing in and out. And then, with a sound like soft turning leaves, the door opened inward. Stephen stepped through. What greeted him was beyond anything he could have imagined. A vast library stretched out before him, so immense it defied earthly architecture. Shelves soared upward into a sky that looked like swirling starlight filling the space. With a soft celestial glow, books floated freely through the air, moving with delicate purpose, each wrapped in a faint aura of its own. Some glowed pale silver, others warm gold, and some shimmered with shifting husk-like dreams, themselves constantly changing form. There were books that whispered, books that hummed, books that pulsed with gentle luminescence, as though alive with their own quiet spirit. Soft steps sounded nearby. Stephen turned there, approaching him with slow, graceful movements was a figure unlike any he had seen, tall, slender, ethereal, their form made of shimmering starlight and drifting pages, as though they were crafted from moonbeams and the breath of stories. Their voice, when it came, was soft enough to soothe oceans, clear enough to quiet storms. Welcome, Stephen Fry, the figure said, their voice neither male nor female, just warm, timeless. We have been expecting you. Stephen's eyebrows lifted gently, his lips curving in a small, incredulous smile, while he said softly, "That's a greeting I don't believe I've ever heard in a library before." The figure's glow brightened slightly, as though pleased. "This is no ordinary library," they said. "This is the place where stories rest when the world dreams them, and tonight, Stephen, your voice is needed." Stephen swallowed, his heart filled with a blend of humility and wonder. Whatever this place was, whatever purpose awaited him here, he knew with absolute certainty that stepping through that whispering door had been the right decision. He felt calm, he felt held, he felt home. It starts with a simple scene: Stephen, now older, walking alone through a quiet corner of England. During a late afternoon, the sky is neither bright nor dark. It hangs in that in-between hour where the world softens and the wind hums around old brick walls. The autumn trees sway with leaves that look like trembling copper coins. Every step he takes is cushioned by moss and time, and he feels the kind of peaceful solitude that allows thoughts to resonate clearly inside his mind. He does not yet know he will one day narrate stories that millions will fall asleep to breathe with, cry with. He only knows that words sing inside him like gentle companions. As he walks, he suddenly hears a small group gathered under an oak tree. A local storytelling group, perhaps 7 people, perhaps 10. Sitting in a loose circle, someone recognizes him. He's known now, but not yet iconic. They invite him. "Stephen, would you read something for us?" His eyebrows rise. He laughs politely. "Good heavens, what on earth would you like me to read?" A middle-aged man hands him a worn notebook. "Anything. Your voice makes words sound different, alive." And just like that, without meaning to, Stephen steps into the center of the circle, the exact place where countless storytellers over centuries once stood. There is no microphone, no studio, no production team, just humans and silence. But perhaps that is why it becomes one of the most defining moments of his life. When he opens the notebook, he inhales slowly. The words tremble on the page. His voice begins, and something sacred happens: the transformation. Stephen starts reading the first line, a simple line, nothing dazzling, nothing unusual. But the moment his voice escapes his lips, the air around the circle changes. It softens, deepens, thickens with emotion. His voice is not dramatic or overbearing. It is warm, effortless, and deeply human, yet in that gentle timbre there is something ancient, something that feels like it carries centuries of wisdom, curiosity, and kindness. His voice is like warm tea in winter, like the hum of a safe home. Like soft candlelight in a quiet room, people unconsciously shift closer. One person closes their eyes, another exhales softly. A child nearby begins leaning against her mother, almost instinctively soothed by the sound. Stephen continues reading, unaware that his voice is subtly weaving threads between people, creating a silent tapestry of comfort. This is the moment he understands that a voice is not just sound, it is a companion. Some voices demand attention, some voices entertain. But Stephen's voice embraces. He finishes the reading, gently closing the notebook for a moment. No one speaks. The silence is not awkward. It is reverent. People are absorbing something they cannot explain. A woman finally whispers. It felt as if the story was breathing. A young man adds, "Your voice carries kindness." Stephen scratches the back of his neck, slightly embarrassed. Slightly touched, he feels humbled, not proud, because in that moment he realizes something profound. His voice is not powerful because it is grand, it is powerful because it is gentle. And gentleness in a world that often forgets softness becomes a rare kind of strength. Understanding his place in the world as twilight deepens and the small gathering begins to disperse, Stephen stays behind for a moment under the oak tree. He looks up at the branches, dark against the fading sky. A soft breeze moves through the leaves, making a sound that feels like nature whispering approval. For the first time, Stephen feels not only that he loves storytelling, but that storytelling might love him back. He realizes something life-altering. People do not just listen to his voice, they lean on it, they rest in it, they trust it. His narration becomes a safe space, a lighthouse, steady and warm, guiding people through foggy nights. And he understands deeply, quietly, that this is a calling, not the kind of calling that shouts, but the kind that gently taps your shoulder and says, "Come along now, there's work to be done." He walks home under the soft glow of twilight, and for the first time in his life he feels perfectly aligned with the path beneath his feet. After that quiet, almost imperceptible pull towards something greater, Stephen Fry found himself standing before a door. Unlike any he had ever encountered, the room behind it was not his familiar sitting room, nor any part of his home, though the warmth from the envelope and the gentle hum of curiosity had followed him here. No, this door promised something entirely different, a world that seemed woven from possibility itself. Stephen took a deep, measured breath, feeling the weight of anticipation and wonder settling into his chest like a soft, slow heartbeat. The door was made of polished wood that shimmered faintly in the low light, and he could sense it pulsating with life, not a threat, but a beckoning, inviting him forward, coaxing him into a realm that defied ordinary experience. He rested his palm lightly on the brass doorknob. The warmth from the metal seeped into his skin, a quiet reassurance that this was real, and that this step, this very moment, was not a dream. Though it felt like one, and yet in the calm certainty that had begun to fill him, Stephen realized sometimes the most extraordinary things do not need to scream to be believed. Sometimes they simply whisper with a soft twist. He turned the knob, the door swung open silently, and a gentle light spilled into the hallway behind him. The room beyond was bathed in an ethereal glow, soft and golden like the first light of dawn brushing the horizon. He stepped through cautiously, each footfall muffled by what seemed to be a floor of living warmth. Neither cold nor rigid, but tender and giving, like the embrace of a long-forgotten friend. The air smelled faintly of cedar and honey mixed with the delicate hint of parchment. It was a scent that immediately reminded him of libraries he had loved as a child. Those hushed sanctuaries where the world felt infinite and safe. And yet this place was different, larger than any library he had ever known, wider, taller, vast enough that he could not see its edges, only the soft glow of shelves stretching into the distance. The books themselves seemed alive, gently shimmering, hovering, and occasionally turning a page of their own accord. Stephen's breath caught a quiet gasp that mirrored the awe rising in his chest. Here in this hidden library, he felt the weight and the blessing of the stories. He had dedicated his life to each one, seemed to hum with a life of its own, as if patiently waiting for a voice like his to awaken it, to give it purpose beyond ink and paper. He moved forward slowly, taking in the subtle movements of the room. Each step felt like a conversation with the space itself. The whispers of the books were soft but distinct, not words in a language he could consciously understand, but vibrations in the heart. Each whisper seemed to echo fragments of forgotten dreams, tales left unfinished in the waking world, moments that longed to find their rest. And Stephen knew almost instinctively that this was why he had been called here. He had always thought of himself as a storyteller for the living, for the awake, but in that instant he realized the magnitude of the calling before him. There were stories that needed him to carry them where no ordinary voice could reach, to soothe, to settle, to guide dreams into quiet fulfillment. A sound caught his attention. It was soft like the brush of silk against skin,